Chodesh Nisan, and we're now where it says the Trumas Shkolim, which is the third line up from the beginning of the wide lines. It's by the little hay of the Ein Mishpat. You have a different print, but it's the same words but different print. So by the little hay of the Ein Mishpat. Did I show you where it is? You have it. The Trumas Shkolim. Okay, Trumas Shkolim. How do we know that every year when you start taking the money from the Beis HaMikdash for the new fiscal year, you start on Rosh Chodesh Nisan? Said, like when they began the first year in the Midbar, they took to Trumas Shkolim on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. That's when they used to do it. Came to pass in the first month in the second year, Bechad l'Chodesh, in the first day of the month, Hukam HaMishkan, that's when the Mishkan was erected. The Tani law, we learned about this. B'yom Shukam HaMishkan, Bo B'yom Nitram HaTruma. The first day the Mishkan was erected, that was the first day they took funds from the collection for the new fiscal year to use. So that starts with Chodesh Nisan. Rabbi Tavin, Rabbi Yosef B'Shem Kana said, Nemar Kon Chodshei v'Nemar L'Halon Chodshei. How do we know that this is Rosh Chodesh Nisan? It just doesn't say expressly Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So it says Chodshei here. It says Chodshei also in this week's parsha. I think it's in this week's parsha. Chodesh Elochem Rosh Chodesh Mishon Elochem L'Chodshei Hashanah. Right, the first month is Nisan. So it says Chodshei here. It says by the Mishkan. And it says Chodshei also by us. Ma Chodshei Shem Rahalan Ein Monim Elo Nisan. Just like Chodshei by us is only from Nisan. It begins from Nisan. Have Chodshei Shnei Markan. So the Chodshei which is said by the Mishkan Ein Monim Elo Nisan. We only count from Nisan. Rabbi Yonah said, Shavak Rabbi Tava Rosha. Rabbi Tavi forgot the beginning of this brisa. It's a long brisa. V'am herself, and he only began with the end of the brisa. The low cane, it's not like that, but rather kada, like this. And I'll tell you the whole brisa. The Tanya, it says, Zosalas Chodesh B'Chodsho. Right? Today was Rosh Chodesh. We learned this. Today, this is the Ola of a month, each month. Yochi Yitarn B'Chol Chodesh B'Chodesh. So I might think that you take the funds for each month, every month, a new expenditure from the collected funds in the Beis HaMikdash. Right? Maybe every month it's a new expenditure. Yochi Yitarn B'Chol Chodesh B'Chodesh. Tamlom B'Chodsho L'Chodesh Hashanah. No, in its month, for all the months of the year. B'chodesh echad, it says just b'chodesh l'chodshei. I added the chodshei Hashanah. B'chodesh echad u'tarm l'chol chodshei Hashanah. In 1 month you do it for the entire year. Now the truth is the rice they do once for the entire year, but midrabanan they would do it 3 times. Because since there was someone who brought their shkolim late, they want to include them, so they would do it 3 times. In the course of the year, they would take the funds from the collected funds, which are in the Lishka, the special office in the Beis HaMikdash, and use and 3 times a year they would take out from there to spend to buy the korbanot tzibur. But midaraisa, once a year you take out all the funds you need for the ensuing year. It says Chodshei here. There's the end of the brisa which we saw before. It says Chodshei here, and it says Chodshei by Rosh Chodesh. Just like the Chodshei it says later on, Ein Monim Elam Nisan, because of Nisan. Av Chodshei Shnei Markan, so to the Chodshei which it says here, Ein Monim Elam Nisan, it's only from Nisan. Talmud Tzini, we learned over there. Now all of this for those who just learned Daf Yomi Shkolim, we had this a few weeks ago. For those who didn't, it's not so hard. But we would take, there's halacha of Meiser Behema. You put all your animals in a pen, and you take every 10th one, and you take the 10, make it Meiser, you make it a korban. Okay, we don't do it nowadays because, of course, what we do with the korban, it would be disastrous, right? We'd have a whole bunch of korbanos around with nothing to do. So we don't fulfill that mitzvah nowadays. But it says over there, the first day of Elul is the Rosh Hashanah for Ma'aser Be'ema. In other words, everything which is born till Rosh Chodesh Elul is last year's. And those all go to the pen together. Everything which is born from Rosh Chodesh Elul is next year's, and those all go to pen together. Ben Azai says, Lulim is asim bifnei atzma. He says those born in Elul are separate. They are neither. In other words, you have 2 Rosh Hashanah actually. You have the Rosh Hashanah which is Elul, and Rosh Hashanah which is Tishrei. and everything till Elul is one, everything from Tishrei is another, and everything between Aleph Elul and Chav Tes Elul is a third type. And those neither go with the first type nor with the second type. They're by themselves, and we'll see why in a minute. Rav Chuna said, "Time of Rav Meir." Interesting logic. What's Rav Meir's logic that Rosh Chodesh Elul is Rosh HaShanah? Why could they pick Rosh Chodesh Tishrei like every other Rosh HaShanah? Why this one? So fascinating answer. He says, "Ad kane mismatzos later mi hayishanos." What's Yoshan Chodesh by grain? Rosh Chodesh Nisan, right? So he says by animals too. The animals which became pregnant with their fetuses before Rosh Chodesh Nisan, they give birth before Rosh Chodesh Elul. The animals which became pregnant with their fetuses after Rosh Chodesh Nisan give birth after Rosh Chodesh Elul. So therefore, Rosh Chodesh Elul is a cutoff point, not because Rosh Chodesh Elul itself is a cutoff point, but rather reflects the cutoff point of Nisan, which is a normal Rosh Hashanah, obviously, right? There are still ones which tarry to give birth from the old crop, from those who became impregnated before Rosh Chodesh Nisan. They give birth from the new crop. Rabbi Yisrael Rav Chuna said, "Time Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shimon." Now Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Shimon, they weren't mentioned in the Brisa on Amud Aleph, but they go after Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. That's the fiscal year for Meiser Behema. What's their logic? So they say, because we don't care when they became impregnated. Love Shua Kari Matzon, because they have a pasuk. Pasuk says the Kari means the older sheep, which already are full with wool. They love Karim son. They already became full with wool. Ela Bechiros, these are the older sheep, the ones which are born first. Va'amokim Yatfu Bar, and the valleys were covered with young wild crop. Ela Fios, those are the later ones. Yisroa u af yoshiru. They become friendly together and they sing together. So all the sheep sing together. Oh, beautiful bleeding together. So all the sheep sing together. That means that we don't care when they were impregnated, when they were conceived. Before Rosh Chodesh and after Rosh Chodesh and how do they sing together? They becoming karbanos. So they all come together, and therefore he says we don't care when they were conceived. So what's the natural date to follow if you're not going to follow Rosh Chodesh Nisan and not care which are conceived before, which are conceived after? The natural date to follow is Rosh Chodesh Tishrei, like every other Rosh Hashanah in the Torah. Amr Ben Azai. Ben Azai said. So what did Ben Azai say? Ben Azai say, you know what? Since one perspective is look at Rosh Chodesh Elul, the other perspective is look at Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. Let's make a compromise. You are luli misasif ne'atzum. Let's make one Rosh Hashanah Rosh Chodesh Elul, another Rosh Hashanah Rosh Chodesh Tishrei, and the ones in the middle, the ones born in Elul, will be no man's land. They're not considered prior to Elul and not considered subsequent to Tishrei. Okay, so how does this work? No, look, Chamisha B'Av, if you have 5 born in Av, and Chamisha B'Av 5 born in Elul, Chamisha B'Tishrei 5 born in Tishrei, you can't do any Meiser Behema that year. You don't have any Meiser Behema. Ain't Elul Mitztarfin. None of Ain't Mitztarfin. They don't join together. Because the 5 and the 5 and the 5 are all in distinct periods. No, look, Chamisha B'Av, Chamisha B'Tishrei 5 are born in Av, and Chamisha of 5 are born in Tishrei. Or it should be Ein Elul Mitztarfin. They don't join together either. It's a typo. The Korban corrects it. They don't join together either, because it doesn't skip. It's not as if Elul was uprooted and everything else joins together, right? If you have 5 born in Av, 5 born in Tishrei, they don't join. He gives another possibility for the change in gears, though, which is that if you have 5 born in Tishrei and 5 born in the following Av, then they join together, because that's all one fiscal year. From Tishrei till Av is one fiscal year. Elul already is not considered to be the same year. All right, the next line says, "Mention Ben Azai Chaver v'Talmid Elul Rabbi Akiva" is obviously a typo, because it's going to appear, it's redundant. It's going to appear again in its proper context in a few lines. Now the Gemara asks, so let's just skip that, or I read it already, but we're going to skip it anyway. Ben Azai Machri al Divrei Talmidav. I understand. Machlokas between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Shimon. These are all Talmidim of Ben Azai, meaning Ben Azai was older than them. because Ben Azai was, as we'll see in a moment, a friend of Rabbi Akiva's. Rabbi Akiva was the Rebbe of all these people. So how can Ben Azai come and say, well, since these Talmidim say this way and that Talmidim say this way, so let me make a compromise? That's not, you don't do that. You do it with your Rebbeim. You don't do it with your Talmidim. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Meir and Rabbi Meisha b'shem Rabbi Shmuel bar Yitzchak said, you're right. The reason why he made a compromise is because he already had a machlokus of the ancient ones, had a machlokus about this. Who are the ancient ones? The ones who preceded Ben Azai, and they were Ramani Nunava Solam, Tan Rabbi Yonah, Komi Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Akiva, even though there actually was an older machlokus from the time Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Akiva. So Samaris, and this teaches us, this is the same line which we had before, which I cut out, Ben Azai Talmid v'chaver hayil Rabbi Akiva. Ben Azai was a student and a friend of Rabbi Akiva, because he came a rabbi. If you're going to say Rabbi Akiva was only his Rebbe, and they never became somewhat equal, so then Is Barnash Omer Rabbi, can a person say to his Rebbe, since you Rebbe say like that, and that Rebbe you say like that, so I make up short between you two Rebbes. You don't do that. It's not nice. It doesn't pass. Right? These guys have long white beards and they're wearing long black coats. You're going to say, well, I'll say half like you and half like you. It doesn't work. So it must be that he was on somewhat of an equal footing with them. Right? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Avo b'shem Rabbi Shmuel bar Yitzchak Shama min Ado. Here that Rabbi Ben Azai was a Talmid Chaver. In other words, he eventually became someone on a par with Rabbi Akiva from the following Gemara, from the following Mishnah. Mishnah Bava Basra. Amar Ben Azai said to Rabbi Akiva, I'm upset at you. Al chaluki mara mitztarim. And those which are distinct, what the case is not important for us now, so I won't get into it. And those which are distinct on the we're upset. El Shabbos l'chaykel Hashem, he came to draw a distinction between those which are equivalent before us. So that was a kind of a cheeky language. So Samaris, so Ben Azai was not employed as such cheeky language to his Rebbe. Must be that Ben Azai chaver of a Talmid Rabbi Akiva was not just he became a Talmid chaver, he became someone on a par, because he came a Rabbi, if you're going to share the Rabbi Akiva, which is Rebbe, Is Barnasha Amar Rabbi, somebody speaks as Rebbe like that, never unheard of. Talmudim, we learned over there. They never learned in my daf yomi shiur. Talmudim, we learned over there. Those which are born from the first day of Tishrei until the 29th day of Elul, Harelim Mitztarfin. They join together. And this goes according to the opinion that Rosh HaShanah is the dividing day for Ma'aser Behema as well. Chamish of Rosh HaShanah, Chamish of Achar Rosh HaShanah, 5 are born before Rosh HaShanah, 5 after Rosh HaShanah, and a Mitztarfin. They don't join together. Now, Chamish Livnei Goren, Chamish Achar Goren. They used to make a goren. They used to corral all these animals into a pen in order to take Ma'aser Behema 3 times a year before the Yom Tovim, because that's when they used to bring up the Yerushalmi to bring his korbanos. So what if it happened to be that 5 are born before the corralling time and 5 are born after the corralling time, right? So they are mitzdarif, they join together, so you missed the corral time. So you put them all together next time. They're still in the same fiscal year. It's a convenience to corral them 3 times a year in order to bring them to Yerushalayim. But it's not essential, right? Do it any other time. So those join together. In that case, why they say there are 3 gronas, there are 3 corralling times that they put in Ma'aser Behema? The difference is like this. Before you come to one of these times a year, you're allowed to sell and to slaughter without having taken on Ma'aser Behema. If one of those times came, you shouldn't shech, because now you're raised susceptible to give Ma'aser Behema. If you did, you're exempt. You didn't transgress any specific avera. Rabbi Yosef said, Zosomer.
You can go back retroactively if you didn't have the 10th. When you shefted this, and such when you developed the 10th, and that you can retroactively designate this one as the 10th.
Mm-hmm. No. That one doesn't have. It's part of Ma'aser Behema.
It's not included in the.
No, just like Bisman Hazel, we don't do any Ma'aser Behema. So that one was prior to Ma'aser Behema. Yeah, it has to be live at time of count. It doesn't work retroactively. Okay. Rabbi Yosef says Zosa Meres Shema'aser Behema lo asu, so the lo kechenet. Our Gemara teaches us that Ma'aser Behema is not like fruit, which follows when it blossoms. V'lo shlish, not like that, like grain, which grows after it grows a third. How so? In time kechenet, if you're going to say it's going like What goes after time it blossoms, so that should go after conception. These they call mubar michaftes elul. Let's talk about all those which are, or ad chaftes elul, I guess it should be. Let's talk about all those who became conceived up to chaftes elul. In tema kishlish, if it's going to be like bringing a third. Now here's an interesting thing. Rabbi said, bringing a third. What does bringing a third mean by grain? When grain is a third grown, what's it suitable for? To eat. It's suitable to eat. When is an animal suitable to sacrifice as a korban?
A year? Or 2 years?
7 days.
Oh, 7 days, that's right.
So how many days before Rosh HaShanah should be the cutoff point, after which time, if an animal is born, you can't bring it as a korban anymore? Why a year? 7 days. So what's the last thing an animal could be born and still be Meiser Behema that year? Let's say the 22nd day of Elul. So how can the animals born up till the 29th day of Elul being put into together with animals from the rest of the year, so they can't be sacrificed here? That's what I was about to ask. We're going to say it has to be suitable to eat by a grain, so it has to be suitable by sacrifice by Meiser Behema. In Tema Kishlish, these they call no Lodi Masir V'Steinbo, to go after the 22nd day of Elul. So it says Rabbi Simi Bar Bub Shem Raibun Bar B'Chia said Kishlisha. So no, it's really like a third. So if that's the case, stop at the 22nd day of Elul. Rabbi Shimon Amar Mechusas Manichnas Adili Saser. We don't look at when it could be brought as a korban. Since it's part of this, since it's born this year, I don't care that you can only bring it as a korban the following year, even though it's lacking the time to mature to be brought as a korban this year. Come Raimon Rabbi Simi, so met Rabbi Simi. Amalei said, Ata Marta Domils. Did you say this? Didn't we learn Benazi Omer Lulim Misasi V'Neatzman? Benazi says the ones from El are Meiser by themselves. Lo afilu noilad ad choftes Elul, and that sounds like it doesn't matter when an Elul they're born, even up to the 29th day of Elul. Yitzchak Meimar Ben Azai Rabbi Shimon Lo Rabbanan. Are you going to say Ben Azai also learned like Rabbi Shimon and not like Rabbanan? Ben Azai wouldn't have learned like Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon didn't exist at the time of Ben Azai, right? Rabbi Shimon was the Talmud of Ben Azai's, right? So what are you going to say? He learned like Rabbi Shimon? Says the Gemara. But now again, he's the man with Rabbi Shimon Lo Rabbanan who? So says the Gemara. No. Ben Azai would hold, just like the Rabbanon hold. What do Rabbanon hold? When do you make the Goren for Meiser Behema? You can't sacrifice it that year, right? Anything born after Chaf Beis Elul. So what do you do with them? So the Gemara says, very interesting thing, it says, it's not that you have to wait a whole year now. Just make the corral, the pen, after 7 days after Rosh Hashanah. And then all the ones in the previous year can also go in. Right? Because now they're suitable. So it says Gemara Atom Rabbanan Menicham Ma'aser Shana Ba. You leave them until 7 days until Zion at Tishrei. They Misasim Neshul Aslan. And then you take all of them for the previous year, including those born up to the last moment of the year, and their mice together. Kein Atom Rabban Azai, so to Ben Azai. All their lulim work together. Menicham Lagorna Ba. You leave them for the next corralling period, which happens to be the Korban says Pesach. Famous Hasi mean Bnei Elul and their Meiser together with all the other people of all the other Elulites which are still around. So actually leave it around to the next corralling period. Rav Chuna says that teaches us the days of the Bechor is Mechusar Zman. Even those last 7 days of the year, so they count as part of the year. Now that means that. This is not just for Meiser Behema. He's learned from Meiser Behema to Bechor. A Bechor you have to bring as a korban during its first year. If it's a Bamum, you have to eat it during its first year. So just like we see that by saying just like by Meiser Behema, you get everything born up to Chaftes Elul, considered part of that year, even though it's Mechusar Zman, even though you can't sacrifice from another 7 days. So to a Bechor, you get 365 days on the calendar, whatever it is, 354 days, even though the first 7 days is not suitable to be a korban. So it's not 354 plus 7, it's only 354 altogether. Rabbi Yonah said, Rabbi Yonah Abba, Rabbi Yonah my father, Shomal Amin Ado. He learned it from here. All the Bechoros which are born in your cattle and in your sheep, Hazocha, the males, Taklis Hashem, should sacrifice to God your Lord. Ketzad, how's it work? Asher Yivol, it means from the time it's born, Mishas Dosat Monelo, from the time it's born, you start counting. Okay, Be'echa B'Tishrei. On the first day of Tishrei, Rosh HaShanah, it's the Rosh HaShanah for years. L'shmitim, for Shemitah years. Yovel years. U'netiyah, for planting, for orla purposes. We'll learn about that in Gemara. U'l'yirachos, and for vegetables, for meisering vegetables. The meiser sheni, meiser 1 year ends on Tishrei, and then begins the meiser of the next year. So first, second year meiser sheni, third year meiser oni, that begins and ends on Rosh Hashanah. However, in Yoina de Yoimo, Be'echad B'Shvat Rosh Hashanah Le'ilon, should learn this more like a tefillah, that this should be the time spring should start. Be'echad B'Shvat Rosh Hashanah Le'ilon. On Rosh Chodesh Shvat, we have to pass it like Beis Shammai, that Rosh Hashanah Le'ilonos is not Tu B'Shvat, it's Rosh Chodesh Shvat. They still read Tesvav, but they still says in Tesvav. In Chicago, they would have said Tesvav Nisan. All right, Shani Minayin. How do you know that years begin on Rosh Chodesh Tishrei? One pasuk says, "V'chago asif b'tzeis Hashanah." The holiday of gathering at the end of the year. The end of the year means when the year turns over. The holiday of gathering at when the seasons change. Tkufa is the seasons. Ezu Chodesh. So what's the month? Sheyesh, which has got Chag, holiday. Skufa, a change of season. Asif, a harvest time. Not a harvest time, a gathering time. B'shana Yotzibah, and the year changes it. Tishrei. Excuse me, it's gotta be Tishrei. In Tamar Tevis. Maybe say it's Tevis. Isbeit Kufa, it's got a change of season. It changes from fall to winter. Probably Bechag doesn't have a holiday. V'asif, nor does it have gathering. Itamar Nisan, say Nisan, which changes from spring to summer, from winter to spring. Isbeit Kufa changes seasons. Bechag Leisbeit, it doesn't have a holiday, right? It doesn't have the holiday of Chag, which is Sukkot. Isbeit Kufa v'Chag, it's got a holiday. It's got a season and a holiday. There's no gathering. It's not the time gathering yet. It's time only of harvesting. In Teimatab is going to say it's Tammuz. Isbeit Kufa, it's a time it changes season from spring to summer. V'Asif, and it's got a gathering. I guess already then you gather stuff into the field to your house. V'Leis Bechag, it doesn't have a holiday. So therefore, which one is it? Zet Tishrei.
Nisan has an Asif that has the Omer.
It's not an Asif. It's a kotir. It's a harvest. You're not gathering it into your house. So it's a harvesting. I mean, Chavraya kum Rabbi Yoina. So the Chavraya said for the Chavra said in front of me, "V'yei Tammuz." Let's make now the way I'm going to list like the Nir. The Nir explains this. It says, "Let's make sukkahs in Tammuz." Who told you to make sukkahs in Tishrei? Make sukkahs in Tammuz. So it says sukkah is supposed to be in the 7th month. Yeah. So it says sukkah. It says sukkahs in the 7th month. So I want to say the the first month it's Teves, and make the 7th month Tammuz. So it says the Gemara. Amar Lon, so he said, Yerapikarsim. Now you argue with me on the names of the months. Not the names, but of course the order of the months. That's we have a Kabbalah, a Mesecha, right? That the months go back to the first month is Nisan, right? The truth is, he could have quoted him Psukim, Kol Chodesh is a Rosh Chodeshim, but I guess we need a Masorah to know that that's Nisan too. So that's he's saying that's Masorah we have, that's the order. Shmos Chodeshim Dem Rabim Alai. Dem Rabbi China said Shmos Chodeshim Olu Mi Bavel. The years, the names of the months came up from Bavel. Berishoina, and let's give an example that used to be before they went to Bavel. Pierre Chaysonim. Tishrei was called the month of the Hisonim. What's the Yisorim? The strong ones. Shabo noldu avos. Avos are born in Tishrei. Meso avos, they died in Tishrei. Nifkudu imos, and the mothers became pregnant. Barishoina used to be Bierach Bul. Kislev was called Bul. Bul is Shabo Lenavel, because the leaves shrivel. Kislev is winter, right? The leaves shrivel. Varetz Asliya Bulos, and the land is made in clumps. I don't know what that means, the land is made in clumps. I guess because it's so muddy. So the land, there's clumps of earth, where the wagons go, everything gets all, there are depressions and raised elevations. Puddles, right, good word. And, Shabo Bolim Leveim Atochabayis. And also you mix food to animals from in the house because there's no more food for the animals outside in the fields. Bereshar used to be Bierach Ziv. Eor is called Ziv. Shabo Ziv Sha'olam. The radiance of the world is apparent because Hatzmochim Nikorim. That's the spring growth is clearly recognizable. And the trees, the buds are already clearly seen, not just the buds, the leaves. Mikan ve'elach, that was all till the Golus Bavel. From here on in, Mikan ve'elach, from here and then, by Yiva Chodesh Nisan, it happened in the month of Nisan, Shnas Esim, 20th year, B'chodesh Kislev, Shnas Esim, B'chodesh Asir, Chodesh Tevis already gave names. Okay? Rashim Elach Shomer, Af Shemos HaMalachim Ola B'Yad B'Bavel. They also got the names of Malachim Bavel. So the Maskilim say, how do I know what the Maskilim say? Because Reb Tzadok brings down the Maskilim. Reb Tzadok says the Maskilim say that the whole concept of angels is a Babylonian concept. That there are no angels in Judaism, and they brought him up from Bavel with them. So Reb Tzadok goes, rants and raves and shouts and screams. It says, Shemos HaMalachim Ola B'Bavel. And the truth is very difficult to say because in Tanakh you have several times things which are clearly creatures which are clearly angelic in nature. But Reb Tzadok says, so what's Pshat? The Malachim didn't have names, so it came from Bavel. So he says two reasons. He says one reason, he says, is that Malachim, before in the time by his Rishon, says a Malach has a name based on its mission. But it says, till by his Sheni, Malachim's missions changed. They were in flux. Because there was a much more fluid hashgacha on Yisrael, since there was a much closer relationship between God and Israel, so therefore Malachim's missions were constantly in flux, depending on the correlation between Am Yisrael's deeds and what God wanted to do to them at that time. So it was hard to fix the name with them. But at the time by Sheni, things became more fixed. In other words, now there isn't the same quid pro quo, cause and effect relationship, right? There's standard ways in which God conducts himself, regardless of whether we're good or bad. So therefore, the names became fixed at that time because there's certain shlichuyos which remain the same. Another interpretation of Tzadok says, which I think is even cuter, is that Tzadok says, in times of Bayis Rishon, there was the Yetzer of Avodah Zarah. So if they would have known the names Malachim, they would have set up a Gavriel cult, a Michael cult. They would have started worshiping them, right? This way, since there were no set times of Bayis Sheni, we know they canceled the Yetzer of Avodah Zarah. We're going to have later in Yuma and the Bavli. So once they cancel the Yetzer of Avodah Zarah, so now nobody's going to start a Gabriel cult. So therefore, we can give the Malachim their names. We can reveal the names at this point. So a beautiful shot. Okay? So that's what he said, and that's what he say. Barishoina, originally, the time before goes Bavel, one of Srafim came to me, doesn't say what his name was. Srafim might be Malo. Srafim stand above God. Mikan Vayach Vayiranin, Vayish Gavriel, Ki Michael Sarchem, we got names. Okay, the names came to Golus Bavel. The Shmitos Minayin. How do we know that Shmitos, also, that this is not in the Bavli, by the way, that thing about the names, only here in the Yerushalmi. Okay? The Shmitos Minayin. How do you know that Shmitos also began in Rosh HaShanah? So we have Miketz Sheva Shoyin Tasa Shmita. At the end of 7 years, make a Shemitah. Ma'ashani mitishrei, just like years begin at Tishrei. Av Shemitas mitishrei. L'yoyvels minan. I don't know the yoyvels start on Tishrei. Also, Gzer Shavuos. So, Vayatach Sheva Shabbos, so count 49 years. Sheva Ponim. Ma'ashani Mishmitim Tishrei, just like years and Shemitim start from Tishrei. So too, Av Yoyvels come to the end of 7 times 7. Mitishrei, they're from Tishrei. Hey, Sivon, so they asked the Kasha, I can say it's from Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. When you make the shofar blowing for Yovel, to let all the slaves go?
It's in my Sukkot of the 50th year.
Not Sukkot. Yom Kippur.
Oh, Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur. So it doesn't start Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. It starts Yom Kippur. Says where no can't. Rabbi Yonah Bar Yosef Tarvayim b'Shem Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yitzchak both said Kadeshu Kol Chodshei Shana Shavi. We need all the months to be equivalent. There can't be a month divided between 2 years. No such thing. You can't say the previous year lasts till Yud Tishrei and then a new year starts. You don't have such a creature. Right? Hey, Sivun, they asked, it's not true. What? You don't? But here we learn, Be'echad B'Shvat, Rosh HaShanah Li'ilon, K'divrei B'Shamai. B'Shamai says, Rosh HaShanah Li'ilon, says Divrei is Rosh Chodesh. But B'Silmrim B'Tesva Bo. You make a Rosh Hashanah on the 15th day of the month. Harei Ein Kol Chodshei Hashanah Shavim. B'Chodesh Echad, Nechlok L'Shnei Shayim. We see a month divided in two. Shvat is divided in two. So the Yerushalmi doesn't answer the question. The Sefer Nir does answer the question. The Nir says a cute chap. He says Tu B'Shvat has nothing to do with Tu B'Shvat per se. As we're going to see in Amud Beis, it has to do with watering patterns, with snow melt and such like. So with rains and snow melt. So therefore, it's not that we're dividing the month. We're going by rainwater, as opposed to Yovel. Yovel has nothing to do with any, cycle of water or seasons. Has to do with the calendar year. So calendar years you can't divide. You can only do Tu B'Shvat because of the concept of water, but you can't do that vis-a-vis Yom Kippur, vis-a-vis the Yovel. So therefore Yovel must begin Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. Okay, Ketzah and Tia. Now we're going to get a little bit more detail on Tu B'Shvat. Ketzah and Tia. Tani Anotev Amavrich V'Amarkiv. If you plant or you run a shoot into the ground, or you graft, Shloshim Yom Lefnei Rosh Hashanah, be 30 days for Rosh Hashanah, also a Shana Shlema, it be counts as an entire year. And Mutzakai Mashvis, and therefore also since you already have a yearling sapling, even though it's only 30 days old, you're allowed to keep it alive during Shemitah. Allowed to do whatever it takes to keep it alive during Shemitah. So it's considered to be a bona fide sapling. If you plant the less than 30 days for Rosh Hashanah, lo Shana Shlema, and it's not a year old, therefore Rosh Hashanah, even halachically, also Kaim Mashis now allowed to sustain during Shemitah. Avaloma, they said, regardless of that, Peiros L'Tia Zu Asur Tu B'Shvat. Now listen to this. If you planted before Rosh Hashanah, 1 year, 30 days, right? So L'char for our law, it should be mutar after 2 years and 30 days, right? Because if 30 days is considered a year, so 30 days and 2 years later, it should be mutar. It's not. You have to wait after the 2 years and 30 days till the next Tu B'Shvat, which is actually somewhat less than a full year, right? Because it's 30, then 30 days, then 1 year, then 2 years, then another, say, six months or so, till Tu B'Shvat, 5.5 months. How many is it? Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev, Teves, half of Shvat, 4.5 months, right? So therefore, it's really 2 years and 5.5 months instead of 3 years, right? The 30 days at the beginning, 2 years, and then 4.5 months. But you can't go 2 years and 30 days. That much will not make it. Why not? My time out. What's supposed to? She does that. Rabbi Yossi B'Shem Yochel said, "Uvashonarvis." It says in the 4th year you'll be allowed to eat from the crop. So what does it mean? In the 4th year, you have to go into the 4th year, meaning that even though 2 years and 30 days should count, it doesn't. You have to go into the 4th year, meaning until next Tu B'Shvat. Mach mami no. What? It's in the 4th halachic year. Because halachically it should be considered 3 years, but it's in the 4th halachic year. Mach mamina. How do you learn? It's Pasuk Rabbi Zira. Shosham yelchem arelim lo yelchel. 3 years it should be orla shonit uvashana, and in the 4th year as well. Rabbi Babar Memel Kumi Rabbi Zira. Rabban Mel said for Abizir, this makes sense. B'shenatu shloshim yom v'nei Rosh Hashanah, if you planted 30 days for Rosh Hashanah. Avinot apachas b'shlosh Hashanah v'nei Rosh Hashanah, but if, let's say, you planted less than 30 days for Rosh Hashanah, Isa Chamei. So come see. Shana Shlema, low, didn't get a full year yet, so then Vata Marachin, you're going to say like this. Now, this is the thing. The thing which you want to say is that it's not, you might think that now you have to be very machmir. Right? Let's say you planted less than 30 days for Rosh Hashanah. So how long should I make you wait? 3 years and 4.5 months. Right? He's going to say Bashan Arviz. So wait, should have to work L'chumra then. 3 years and 4.5 months. Because you didn't get that 30 days, right? So now you have to wait 3 full years. Bashan Arviz, wait another 4.5 months. So that we can't say. That can't be. Doesn't make sense. So Maikadun, so Amalei, so he said Vinkani, and the truth is, if that's the case, I feel not to Shloshim Yom Lifnei Rosh Hashanah. He had also Yom Shloshim Lifnei Rosh Hashanah. Even if you planted 30 days before Rosh Hashanah, it should be, in other words, if you're not going to follow the Tu B'Shvat principle, then it should be also exactly 3 calendar years, even if you did plant it 30 years before Rosh Hashanah. So how do you have this shortened 30 year, which is only lasts 2 years and 5.5 months? So says Amora Mike, how do we reconcile this? What comes up? Aramana said, became Chomi b'toch shnoso shel Elon mashlim shnoso. Very interesting halacha. He says that once you get to the turnover of a year of Tu B'Shvat, that suffices. In other words, he says you need a Rosh Hashanah. There are 2 types of Rosh Hashanah. There's real Rosh Hashanah and there's Rosh Hashanah Ilonos. You have to get to either one Rosh Hashanah or Rosh Hashanah Ilonos. Now, the Nir brings down a very interesting thing. He says, the Gra says, however, that it's never more than 3 years from day to day. It's a Zol Kula. If you get to 3 years from day to day, then for sure it's mutter. What Uva Shana teaches us is that if you can do it, foreshorten it, by either getting to Rosh Hashanah, a regular Rosh Hashanah, or Rosh Hashanah Ilonos, within those full 3 years, then foreshorten it. But for sure 3 exact years works. There's no doubt about that. Okay? So it's either one of them. Alright? So 3 possibilities. Either 3 years day to day, 3 years foreshortened by a Rosh Hashanah, 3 years foreshortened by a Tu B'Shvat. Whatever way works, you can make it work. But it's never going to be less than 2 years and 5.5 months. That's the bottom line. Okay? Says the Gemara, Keitali Rokos. How does Rosh Hashanah work for vegetables? Lokam Imenu Yisrael, if a Yisrael collected, Erev Rosh Hashanah Shloch HaShecha, a Yisrael went down and collected tomatoes. He counted tomatoes in the tomato patch. Erev Rosh Hashanah, before nightfall. Vakum Mishach HaShecha, and a Goy collected, of course not a Goy, on Rosh Hashanah. Meiser b'zem b'fnei atzum, b'zem b'fnei atzum. They have to be meisered independently. They're different fiscal years for meiser. Right? Now, let's say the last year is the 2nd year, and this year is the 3rd year. So last year it's meiser sheni, which goes to Yerushalmi, and this year it's meisoni, okay, which goes to the Ani. Rabbi Zira, Rabbi Elazar, Rishem Rabbi Yeshua said, now getting back to Tu B'Shvat. Why is Tu B'Shvat a cut-off point? Most of the year's rains are over by Tu B'Shvat. So therefore, at this point, Tu B'Shvat, we consider this to be a cut-off point because since most of the rain is over, most of what's going to grow from the previous year, most of what's going to bud from the previous year, is budded. Okay? I shouldn't say most is going to bud from the previous year. Anything which is not yet budded is next year's. Okay? Anything which is going to bud is from last year. Now, let's see what he says. Despite the fact that still most of the season is ahead of you, in other words, winter is not yet nearly half over yet, because winter lasts till Nisan. But nevertheless, since most of the rain is already come down, so we say that's a break-off point. One said we don't look at the rain, but rather Ad Kan Yichayim Mea Shana Shel Havra. And from now till now, they've been sustained from the previous year's rains, not this year's rains, not this rainy season, but previous year's rains. From last Tu B'Shvat till this Tu B'Shvat, it's either been the rain, which actually fell after last Tu B'Shvat, or the runoff from the water, from snow melt, from rivers, which are from last year. So he doesn't look at the rains per se, but it looks like last year's waters. The bottom line is that it's a demarcation point, either for rains, that most of the rains of this year have achieved their impact, even though you still have a majority of winter ahead of you. That's the first opinion. The other opinion is that from last Tu B'Shvat till this Tu B'Shvat, all of the water is from one period, meaning the epic of rainwater and snow melt and all that from that period of time, and that's one unit vis-a-vis trees. Okay, so we don't know which one said which. Since they all said most of the rain is very important. Even though there's still most of winter left. Heavy Rabbi Zira. Zira said the other opinion. Till now they're using last year's rains. From here on in, they're using next year's rains. Now, Ma'aser Rabbi Kiva is a Ma'aser Rabbi Kiva Shalokat Esrog, who gathered in Esrog, V'Nasla of Chumrei Beis Shammai and Chumrei Beis Hillel. You got an Esrog between Rosh Chodesh Shvat and Rosh Chodesh Elul. Rosh Chodesh Shvat and Tu B'Shvat. So what do you do with it? Is it last year's or is this year's? Machlokas Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. So he's machmir on both. What he did, Gemara's going to say later on, but I'll tell you now. He took a Ma'aser, let's say last year's Ma'aser Sheni, this is Ma'aser Ani. He took off Ma'aser, he designated Ma'aser Sheni, redeemed it, and they gave it to an Ani. Because that way he was able to say both. So he did. So the Gemara says, whoa, why Dafka and Esrog? Why not any fruit? Right? Normally Esrog, if you shakli in any other tree. So it says, you're right. It wasn't, it wasn't the Chumrah Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. Really, everybody holds like Beis Hillel. I mean, Rabbi Kiva's not going to be machal like Beis Shammai. That's what I mean. So what was this? What was the sofek? Tani kachumram gam harvest time, right? That's who. So the question is, do by esrog it's like a tree, which follows when the tree buds, or is it like a vegetable which follows when we collect it? Okay, so we didn't know which one to do. This was an esrog which budded in the second year, but was collected in the third year. So we have to be machmir both, right? So Rabbi Gamliel, the Beis Hillel, Inun Have. Rabbi Gamliel says where it's actually kasha. Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Lezer, the Beis Hillel, Inun Have. What does Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Lezer have to do with Beis Hillel? So the answer is it became, like I said, it budded before Tu B'Shvat the second year. Then was collected in the third year. Right? So Daita Rabbi Gamliel, who holds you go after budding, after collecting, Yisroyani, needs Ma'asrani. Adaita says goes after budding, Yisroy Sheni, needs Ma'aser Sheni. Ma'asara, what did Rabbi Akiva do? Kol Hashem, Ma'aser Shabo, he designated the Ma'aser as Ma'aser Sheni, Uptoy and redeemed it, V'noslani, he gave it to a poor person. Okay, Shtikal Agadata. By the way, it's much different giving shiur here. We don't have to. Quieter, very quiet. Yeah. I'm not used to it. It's going to put you guys to sleep, right? The four times a year the world is judged. On Pesach on Pesach on grain, Ba'ateres on Shvuos, Peros on Peros Elon, on the fruit of the tree. For Rosh HaShanah, all the people of the world pass before God like sheep. God created all their hearts together. He understands all their deeds. We're judge of water. Tani. Now, there's several interpretations of what we're talking about here. Tani. Those learn Kulam Nidaim Rosh HaShanah. Everything is judged Rosh HaShanah. And the decree on all these things our Mishnah Rosh Hashanah, not like our Mishnah. East time, those who learned, to kulam nidarim Rosh Hashanah, they're all the judge of Rosh Hashanah. Ugzar din shkolech ve'echad mischat Yom Kippur, and the gzar din of everything is done on Yom Kippur, not like our Mishnah. East Tani, kulam nidarim Rosh Hashanah, they're all the judge of Rosh Hashanah. Ugzar din shkolech ve'echad mischat bizmano. And the gzar din of each and everything is issued at its proper, at the time mentioned in our Mishnah, right? Which is b'chag, alamayim, and Peiros Elon, and grain, and Pesach, and so on and so forth. East Tani, those who learn, they're not all judged on Rosh Hashanah, they're scattered. And just like the din is scattered, of course, the gzar din is scattered. Mastisa command Markul Nidar Rosh Hashanah. Our is like the opinion which holds they're all judged in Rosh Hashanah. Ugzar dino shel kol echad ve'echad mischatim izmano, and the decree is issued at each time. The Vilna, because it says v'chag nidoinin al hamayim. It says that on Chag, on Sukkot, they're judged on the water. So what does that tell us? Already said Barba Prakim Olam Nidon, that the world is judged at 4 different times. So why does it have to say they're Nidon now and Nidon now and Nidon now? So it must be that they're all judged on Rosh Hashanah. Gee, you know what? I thought I understood how the Gemara derives this, but now I don't know. Now I don't know. I really don't understand how the Gemara learned it out. I really thought I did, but now I'm not sure. Oh, now I remember. Okay, because it says already beginning of Mishnah by Bar Prakim Elam Nidon. So why did it say it's like, it's like we've seen this before in Yerushalmi, where we dash a Mishnah like a pasuk. By pasuk, the principle ein miut achar miut elo l'rabos. Whenever you have an exclusion after an exclusion, it's an inclusion, right? So it said at the beginning of Mishnah by Bar Prakim Elam Nidon. It says 12 times a year it's judged. And then it says Nidon bePesach, Nidon beShavuos, Nidon beChag. It's superfluous. You already know it's 4 times a year, right? So I'd say Nidon again. Here it's Rivuy Achar Rivuy L'mayit. I'm sorry. An inclusion after inclusion to exclude. So it says Nidon twice, and it's superfluous and repetitious. So it must mean when we say it's Nidon at the other times, they're not really judged, but rather the Gzar Din, the Kfitul, as they say, comes out during those times. Okay? The word Nidon mentioned twice means really that we're not talking about being judged, but rather we're just talking about issuing a Kfitul. I just realized this now. We say Hoshana Rabbah is, there's a Kfitul, and we daven for water. That's not like the opinion, that's only like the opinion that Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is not this Man Chasima. If your Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is Man Chasima, like that Bryce in our Gemara, then what are you davening for on Hoshana Rabbah? It's too late. We must be davening Hoshana Rabbah for water, like the Shita, that although the initial din is on Rosh Hashanah, the Chasima is only on Hoshana Rabbah. Chasima just for water, mind you, not for anything else, right? Because that's what we daven for Hoshana Rabbah, for water. So the Chasima for water is on that time. And that must be that we're Hoshana Rabbah, we're machmir, like the opinion that water is separate. We daven for water on Hoshana Rabbah. Okay?
So why we say Tfilas Geshem on Shmini Atzeres, which is on Hoshana Rabbah?
Because Tfilas Geshem is connected with Gvuras Geshamim. It's not the request. It's not. It's a praise. Tfilas Geshem is a praise of God for the rainy season. The request for a good rainy season is the Tfilas of Hoshana Rabbah. That's all of the all of the Arava things that have to do with water. Okay, Milsa the Rava, from Rav's statement we learn Kulam Nidarim Rosh Hashanah, everybody's judged Rosh Hashanah, Ugzar Dir Shel Echem Mischatim Rosh Hashanah, and they're all sealed in Rosh Hashanah. The Tkani b'Tkiyas of the Rav, it says in the Tkiyas of Rav, meaning Rav's Machzer for the Tkiyas of Rosh Hashanah, Zayom Tchilas Ma'asech Zikon Liyam Rishon, we all know this. I think it's incorporated in Sana Tokif, right? Zayom Tchilas Ma'asech, this is the beginning of your deeds. Zikon Liyam Rishon, commemorating the first day. Ki chok l'Yisrael, because this is the day in which the law will be issued out to Am Yisrael. Mishpat, the judgment, Loke Yaakov, the God of Yaakov. V'amedinos pei yomer. I always thought this was part of the Son of Toichef. It's not in the Gemara, but here it says that Rav actually made it. Was this in the Bavli too? This thing from Rav? So in V'amedinos pei yomer, and the country says, Eitzel l'cherev, Eitzel l'sholom, Eitzel l'rav, Eitzel l'sova, Ubrios b'yipokedu l'askim l'chaim l'mavis. If you want to know what it means, look at the Machzer. So it says more, all that is the Lok Rabbi Yosa. Sounds like Rosh Hashanah, this is issue, it's not Rabbi Yosa. Rabbi Yosa, Yochi niton b'chol shah. An individual is judged every moment. My timer, what's the pasuk that teaches us? But tifkidenu livkorim, you'll check him out every morning. L'rgoim tivchanenu, you'll revisit him every morning. You'll check him out every moment. But tifkidenu livkorim, you'll visit him every morning. Supernaso check if she money that day. L'rgoim tivchanenu, every moment you'll check him out. So to see if it gets late to eat. So the Bavli says we daven today for cholim. You make a mishberach for cholim every day. What good does it do? It's after Rosh Hashanah, so it's like Rabbi Yossi. Because Rabbi Yossi says a person's need b'chol yom. It's interesting. The Sameach says, the Rambam says when he mentions Yichroinus and Rosh Hashanah, so the word Bikadon doesn't count. Pokad, called Yishkochos. If you find a pasuk that says the word Pokad, it doesn't count. So says the Rambam, says Meshchach Moana, because the Yerushalmi. Because the Yerushalmi says Rabbi Yossi is the one who says Adam nidam b'chol yom, and he says learn out from Pokei l'bkarim, right? V'tifkidenu l'bkarim. So we have to reject that, right? Because we say Rosh Hashanah is the time for zichronos. So we have to learn that the Pekida is not a language of proper zikaron, of judgment, like which Rosh Hashanah is. Rabbi Yitzchak Rabbi Shem Rabbi Melech. Hey, it's a name. I didn't even notice it when I was preparing this. Check that out. I always thought Melech is like a Yiddish corruption of Eli Melech. But here is it.
Melech. Why are you so sure this Melech is not Melech?
No, Melech. No, I'm saying Melech.
Oh.
No, but it's given as a proper Hebrew. I always thought that the name Melech, which is given to kids, is a Yiddish this corruption of Eli Melech. It's not. You see, Rab Melech. Okay? My son is named Eli Melech. We named him Eli Melech. Yitzchak Eli Melech after his great-grandfather, whose name was Melech. We figured there was no name Melech. But here it is. It's for Melech. So, Yitzchak Hashem Melech said, "Tzibur nidayin b'chol yom." A tzibur always can get judged every day. In other words, tshuva for a tzibur works every day. My time, why? Lasos mishpat avdo, mishpat amo Yisrael, dvar yoim b'yoimo. The judge. Oh, I skipped a word. Oh no. I am so stupid. I apologize. Of course, I read it wrong.
Melech
v'tzivur. I know. I read it right when I prepared it. Oh, what an idiot. Rabbi Yitzchak Rabbi Shem Revi said, Melech v'tzivur. Melech v'tzivur, a king. What?
Your son is safe.
Yeah. A king and a community are judged every day. My time, what's supposed to teach us last one? Mishpat Avdo. Avdo here meaning David HaMelech, Shlomo HaMelech, which is the king. Mishpat Amo Yisrael, Farayom B'Yomos. It's interesting. Kings and nations are judged every day. God is constantly, because God really runs the world. It's a theological statement. God runs the world on the level of nations. Individuals are not so important as nations. So what's going to happen with a nation is reassessed every day. What's going to happen with an individual can be checked out once a year. So therefore, nations and kings are constantly reassessed. Rabbi Levi said, let's just do a couple more lines. Rabbi Levi said, he will judge the world in justice, and the nations may show him very straight. Sounds like the Lu'umim get special treatment. It says here, it's interesting, the judge of Am Yisrael is during the day. When they're doing mitzvahs. We're judged during the day. He judges the nations at night. When? B'shah shein b'telin, it's a typo, min ha'averos. The goyim, they never do mitzvahs. But at least at night they're sleeping. And they're not doing averos. So God is a chesed to them. So meishorim, He judged them at night when they're not doing averos, so it shouldn't arouse His wrath. Says more no. Shmuel Amar, that's one opinion. Shmuel says, it's Levi. Shmuel says, Mishu dones Yisrael, me means not whom, but when. When he's judging the Jews, who does whom, that's when he judges the Goyim. Ma mekayim Shmuel yodin lumi meishorim. It's a special kishus. What does he get them? So the non-kishen shabbat. So it means just like we have schus avos, the Goyim have schus Goyim. Like the ksherim. He gives them a special schus of the ksherim. What are the ksherim among the Goyim? Maskala Maisi Yisro, Maskala Maisa Rochav Azoina. He remembers the good deeds Goyim did, like Yisro and Rochav Azoina, who saved the Jews. So he gives them the favor of reminding the Jew, giving the Goyim the dispensation of that. All right, we'll stop here for this evening. Yirtzeh Hashem will pick up here tomorrow. Tomorrow again, Marv will be here at 9:05. They promised us tonight that it'll be better on time tomorrow. And Yirtzeh Hashem, that should be the case. Yeah.